Ayya, your audio shows on, but can't hear anything. Is your microphone on?
Thank you. Is that better?
It's on our microphones.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sangham namasami. Now, welcome, friends, to this Tuesday evening program with the Dhamma Darini. We are continuing our reflections and our ongoing practice every day, being concerned with the practice of peace, considering the entire teachings and the entire practice which was given to us by Lord Buddha, with a particular focus on how those teachings and these ways of living and practicing relates to social harmony and internal peace. Most recently, we were coming to the wisdom aspect, and I was trying to point out or suggest that the cultivation of insight, or the awakening of insight through these practices, has a very profound effect on causing us to be internally peaceful and to intuitively be able to do acts of body, speech, and mind which are conducive to social harmony. This past weekend we spoke about Vedana, or the three kinds of feelings, considering how an uneducated person who hasn't really thought about it might be strongly reactive to Vedana, especially to pleasant and unpleasant feeling, and that they could both be continuously agitated internally, and also acting and speaking in ways that are so unwise when they're coming out of that reactivity. And then how the Buddha teaches us how to contemplate these feeling states as they actually are, in a more of a detached and a realistic way, to see how fleeting and impermanent the Vedanas are, how they arise based on contact through the senses, and how as soon as the contact is finished, the feeling is also finished. So how impermanent, how ridiculous it would be really to be like a puppet being jerked around by reacting to feelings which can be so fleeting and furthermore to contemplate the feelings internally and externally, to realize that the unpleasant feeling that we feel is similar to the pain or the unpleasant feeling of all sentient beings all over the whole world and the whole cosmos. And so pleasure and pain are not really something that belongs to us individually, but instead it's more of a universal phenomena, something that we touch into from time to time. And so with those contemplations about non-self and about impermanence, and simply through, in the relative safety and stillness of the meditation space, where we are not caught up in some kind of a work that relates to our survival, or related to some kind of social interaction that seems to relate to our survival, where we're in the process of really being, out there in the midst of the battlefield. But instead, during meditation, we have withdrawn from all of the excitement of daily life, where we are intentionally undertaking not to do anything about solving our problems, but simply to be aware of the phenomenon that arises, so that the only activity we're doing is to watch and be aware and be fully cognizing, fully mindful. And just that by itself is more of a safe standpoint from which to examine and investigate the Vedana, the three feelings. And with that investigation, we can in a certain way desensitize our reactivity and just be able to calmly observe, even if something is extremely pleasant or extremely painful that happens during meditation. Our standpoint of knowing, cognizing those experiences is centered and calm and balanced. And then finally, with respect to the neutral feeling, we came to understand and appreciate how the radical teachings of the Buddha show us the way to see the danger in clinging to anything whatsoever. Most people, even an uneducated person who hasn't thought about it, might say they don't want to cling to suffering because they would like to get rid of suffering. And a somewhat a mature and balanced adult person may very easily say that they don't want to cling to pleasure because they've come to understand that pleasure is so fleeting and unstable, and that if clung to, it can become a source of anxiety in itself, so that then ordinary-wise person can learn how to have a somewhat detached attitude towards pleasures. But in the teaching about seeing the gratification, the danger, and the escape with respect to neutral feeling, to be fully mindful, aware, alert, and to really cognize, also to pay attention to a neutral feeling, to what it really is, what its nature is, then we go in a much broader, more deeper, more like all-encompassing way of observing the whole apparatus of our own body and mind, and how they are not self, impermanent, worthless, as something not to be clung to, and only a cause of danger and distress when they are clung to. In the dependent origination, the next factor that is said to arise conditioned by feeling is tanha, or craving. And then it's possible even to cling to craving. In the list of the 5 aggregates, which is also somewhat possibly sequential in nature, the next factor that comes after feeling is perception. So I wanted to speak tonight about perception and how some perceptions are both conditioned by feeling, and there's a kind of a synergy between feeling and perception. An unwise perception will be not representing reality as it really is, but instead will be giving a false picture of reality. And to the extent that our perceptions are distorted, this is what keeps us, what blocks us from discovering that inner peace, and what can also lead us to do so many unskillful deeds of body, speech, and mind, which will lead to disharmony and conflict, both internally and socially, externally. So one way to approach perception is to make ask the question: Is this really true? Is this perception 100% true, or is it biased? And if we find that we're laboring under a biased or a distorted or false perception, merely seeing that process can instantly evaporate all kinds of reactivity. Just saying, oh, that's not what I thought it was, it's something else, can instantly, quickly bring the mind out of a state of stress or excitement into a state of calmness. There is the metaphor, or the Zen story of the person who's canoeing on a lake or something, and it's foggy, and they see somebody coming towards them, and they're concerned that the other person in the other boat won't see them, so they start shouting. But the more they shout, the oncoming boat is continuing coming straight at them. And they become more and more excited and agitated, saying, "Stop, stop, stop." And then just when the other boat comes very close, they realize that it's not a boat at all. It's simply a drifting log, that there's no person there at all. And immediately the anger is gone, because a false perception is substituted by the truth. So I would like to invite you to, now with this long introduction, we can go into the meditation part of this evening program. And as we sit together doing a basic meditation, if any perceptions happen to come into the mind, see whether you could notice this is a perception. And notice if it's true or not true. So with that suggestion, I invite all of us to come to an upright and balanced posture. Aware of the material body, feeling the weight of the body pressing on the chair or the cushion. And the touching sensations. Arriving in the present moment. By way of the touching of sensations. Touching the body. Or any of the sense gates in the present moment. letting the body and mind be very relaxed, with just enough energy to keep upright and just enough energy to pay attention moment by moment. And if the breath is noticeable, letting the focus of awareness to settle on the breath. If there's a point of the body where it's easy to notice the breath, letting awareness settle down in that place. If a thought comes in, notice that. If the mind stays connected to the breath, notice that. If the diverse sensations are very noticeable, notice that. And for the last few minutes, turning the mind towards the thought of loving kindness. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. For all as to myself. Free of ill will. Free of anxiety. I have more to say about cultivating those perceptions that make the mind peaceful. But before going into that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions about the meditation itself, like whether it's possible to notice perception that arises in meditation. And what's that like? And the instruction that's given, Ruanti, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ayya. So during meditation,
You are muted.
can you hear me, Ayya?
Just 1 second, I need to fix my sound.
Can you
I
hear
think
me?
Rwanti is too far from the microphone. Your sound is perfect. Ayya.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you for the meditation. So during meditation, there were different sounds that I noticed. One time there was a sound of a motor bicycle passing by, and there was some faint noise coming from the TV, and also there was the noise of the computer fan going on throughout the time, but I did not pay attention. Towards the end only, I noticed, oh, there's the sound, but none of them, I kind of noticed it, but didn't pay any specific reactive thoughts toward it. So it did not really bother the meditation. I was able to smoothly come back to my breath.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to call on Mita Kanti. So, yes, that's exactly what happens. Often the guidance is given. For example, if you hear a car passing or a bicycle passing, one way that the perception, oh, that's a bicycle, that's a car, that the guidance is, I've heard the guidance given in meditation, don't focus on the perception of what that object is, but instead focus on, just like as a vibration, the sound touching the ear. And then it might be that at a different occasion or at a different part of the meditation, cars are still going by, but you don't hear them anymore because the mind is engaged in something else. And so we can see then that both the sensitivity of any of the sense gates to the objects can change according to how the mind is focused. If we're doing meditation as we started with a sense touching of sensations in the present moment with an open field of awareness, then it's very easy to be aware of many, many different kinds of impressions coming in. Without grasping you, they come and go, come and go, come and go. But then at other times of meditation, even at the same time that that's happening, one can have a very clear perception about how it feels. The feeling is pleasant, the feeling is not pleasant. Sometimes very strong, pleasant feeling. Or it could be that in both in a good way and a bad way. In a good way, if the mind is absorbed in meditation, that then it can withdraw from the external senses, so then one is not disturbed by those things, because even the sense impression is not coming up. And of course, this also could happen in a bad way if one becomes lost in thought. And then if one is sitting in meditation, having lost track of the present moment and just thinking about their problems or daydreaming or something like that, then they don't notice what's coming in at the sense gate, because the mind is going into thought. So just I think it's a very useful part of the experiment to become skillful in terms of what the Buddha is pointing to with his teaching about perception, to actually notice just in a simple way, oh, that's a perception. You know, like there was a sound and I got the perception of a car. Or that's a feeling, and I got the perception that there's a pain in the body, and this is the data, and it's interesting to frame it that way. But I want to now call on Mitakanti.
Hello. Yeah, I guess this is related to maybe I used to perceive this thing one way, and now I'm noticing the usual perceptions popping up are changing, and it's related to the broader practice of peace. But just, I guess, since, or maybe a little bit longer even, but something that's happened here, which hasn't happened in my life before, is actually like noticing, like I have a mosquito bite, and then actually thinking like, yay, some mosquito had a nice meal, or just the sort of perception of like a mosquito buzzing might be more even like, oh, I hope like the mosquito bites me, because then I can donate my blood, and that sort of way of looking at it would have seemed like almost unthinkable, like even just a year ago, because mosquito bites are supposed to be annoying, and you're supposed to like wave them away and be like angry at them or whatever. So I think that's interesting, seeing like how the broader practice also just like can result in new perceptions like that.
So those perceptions that are especially under the influence of greed and aversion are very much involved in the perceptions that lead us to actions. So how we perceive something is related to knowing what to do about it. Again, this can be both skillful and unskillful. In the ordinary course of events, if we need to take a certain amount of rest, the body tells us that, and we get that perception of being exhausted or of lacking sleep, and then based on that, make a decision to care for the body and in getting sleep. So that's okay. That's practical, but it can be. There's a danger of the perception leading to action, which is all about this existence, and it gets us into the gratification, the danger, and the escape. In terms of if you reify it, if you say, I need sleep, I have to have a certain amount of sleep. It's very, dangerous. It's going to be horrible if I didn't get my sleep, and so then it can become something that's pulling us in a wrong direction. Now, the Buddha suggested some particular perceptions. It's like one can look at our experience in a different way through a different lens. In particular, the perception of impermanence and non-self. And so, how this comes to be, if you had not really thought about it before, and you heard the advice or heard the teaching that all conditioned things are impermanent, you might think about doing a study to find out whether that's really true or not, instead of just simply taking the lesson and saying, "Oh," accepting the lesson without actually trying it against your own experience. You could try to check it out. Say, as you are within the meditation, trying to have the mind settle and remain consistent with its object. Say, is the mind able to just stay where you direct it or not? And maybe because of impermanence, the mind is always like changing and shifting about. Or you could notice impermanence in many different ways. And so then from time to time, this, what's at one level just a concept of impermanence comes to be embodied or realized in terms of one's actual lived experience. And then the concept and the lived experience come to be integrated, and then that perception of impermanence can come to be sort of habitual, in the sense that the mind has, like it's attuned or inclined to be noticing impermanence. Now, if you wanted to know whether these teachings of the Dhamma were valuable or not valuable, you could say, so what is the result of having this perception of impermanence compared to not having that perception? So you might notice that if you assume, this is coming to another theme that we were discussing over the weekend about Sakkaya, or the existing group or substantial reality. If you assume that everything is permanent, then life can be very desperate in a lot of ways. If you assume that your own personality is permanent, and you see your own weaknesses and shortcomings in your own personality, then how desperate and miserable you would be. Or if you assume that the situation around you is unchanging and permanent, then if it's not when you come across dukkha, when you experience unsatisfactoriness, then how desperate it is not to have that perception. And so there can be a lot of misery attendant to the distorted thought of having something that's impermanent and thinking that it's permanent. So one way of judging about these perceptions is whether they are in accord with reality or not. And another way of judging these perceptions are they conducive to the purification of the mind and to our ultimate liberation or not? Are they conducive to simply clinging to existence and going around and around? There's a sutta that's very popular in the Theravada world, at least in the Sri Lankan tradition. It's called the Girimananda Sutta. It's about 10 perceptions which are given to a bhikkhu who is desperately ill. And if it's said that if that bhikkhu would cultivate these 10 perceptions, he might become freed from his illness. It's possible that maybe we've discussed this sutta from time to time, and we might come back to it in terms of considering how that those perceptions are conducive to the practice of peace. The first part is, it leads off with a perception of impermanence and non-self, and then has some perceptions about the asubha, contemplating of the parts of the body, and then a contemplation of danger, which is given in terms of many different kinds of illnesses, so that having this material body is subjected to many different kinds of illness, which again is it's a very interesting. I'm not sure that teaching is given in a lot of different places in the suttas, but for a person who is actually facing serious illness, it can be very useful if there's a framework to simply look in an objective and calm way, and to simply face up to the presence of illness. This is a reality. It's part of our reality. If we're in denial about it, if we think, oh no, get away, I can't stand it, then the mind will become agitated and will make ourselves even worse off than before. But if we see the capacity of this body for illness, and if we were prepared for that, then that leads to a disenchantment and non-clinging to the material, physical, bodily life. Some of the other contemplations given in that is about the stilling of the sankhara, or the formations, the mental formations, how the dispassion, or the fading away of the stilling of the formations and dispassion is this is sublime, this is beautiful, this is peaceful. And just having the contemplation of the peaceful quality of dispassion when that comes along. And then one of the contemplations is on cessation or nirodha, and simply contemplating the peaceful and sublime quality of experiencing cessation. That particular set of teachings is especially focused on different phenomena that might be apparent at different levels of meditation. But it would definitely be something that is learned by taking a kind of a special training in meditation to direct the mind to be looking out for these phenomena. If you did not have them pointed out and were not looking out or seeking out those phenomena that could come along during meditation, then it might not become apparent for you. Just as a person who's an artist, like a painter, they might have really studied colors and be able to remember colors and to discern many different aspects of the qualities of different colors and how colors on a canvas could come together to create an image. So they would have a skillful, specialized kind of a color perception as part of their craft that they've developed through the exercise of working with their craft. And so just in the same way, this idea of having, cultivating perceptions that help us to cool down, one part of that I think that's very important is to actually have bringing intelligent alertness to the practice of meditation in order to discern in a more with more fine gradations the different aspects of things that can come along for us in meditation. So when you do the breath meditation, at first one would simply just be noticing the breath. Then simply be noticing the long and short aspect of it. Simply being noticing the material aspect of breath being one of the aspects of materiality. But then noticing the breath meditation in terms of the Vedana that arises, and noticing the ability to choose to tranquilize the material breath and the ability to tranquilize the feeling quality. And so then you will notice that this is the breath which is more coarse or more rough or something like that. And then this is the breath which is more tranquilized and more subtle. Just the same way you might notice at the level of the Vedana that comes up during the breath meditation, being able to notice that this Vedana is more aroused or more agitated, more loud, and then this Vedana is becoming more tranquilized, more subtle. Noticing the states of mind, and again, noticing the mind, the gladdening of the mind, and then subsequently the tranquilizing of the mind. So being able to distinguish, like, what's the state of mind, and to notice to gain, there's a certain kind of discovering that we have the agency or the ability, we have the power, we have the right in a certain way to guide our own experience by where we are directing our attention. So simply directing the attention towards tranquility can cause the breath to become more tranquil. Directing the attention towards tranquilizing the feeling can cause the feeling to become more tranquil. It's like that which we attend to becomes more clear and more noticeable, and more a prominent part of the existence. And then likewise that the material, physical, bodily aspect of the breath can drop away and not be part of the perception whatsoever. And when simply still doing the breath meditation, one is simply able to notice a relinquishment, to notice letting go, fading away, relinquishment, and freedom. So these are perceptions that can be cultivated, which are every bit as clearly discernible, things that really can be experienced as clearly as one could experience that there's a car passing by, or there's a bird chirping, or that there's a pain in the knee. Just as clearly as that, one could notice that the gladdening of the mind or the fading away of passion. And so then it's just that this is the way that perceptions can be both cultivated and purified, and that those perceptions that are conducive to our inner peace and conducive to liberation are the ones that we could choose to pay attention to, that we can choose to become skillful in. We can choose to become experts in those kind of perceptions. So this is all I have to say, and I've used up the time, but I would like to also invite if there's any questions or comments that others may have about how skill and perception can help us. Okay, I'm going to let Mittikanti speak again. It's okay.
Yeah, about the different perception, I just wanted to mention this in case it would be useful for anyone, but like in meditation, even like the breath, there's like the breath, but there's also the part of the breath that is like the most silky or the most pleasant. And with metta, it's possible to like try to, okay, what's the way to think about metta that is like the most simple or the most sort of pure or the most sort of meaningful, or even if like there's a tight muscle, there's like a part of the muscle of the tightness that is the least tight of that tightness, and directing the mind in that way does produce like the corresponding results. Like one way to relax is to just like try to see those parts of the body that already are relaxed. So I guess those are also just part of basic meditation stuff that maybe those in the monastery take for granted, but it's like nice to, I guess, say it explicitly. Anyway.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Richard.
Thank you, Ayya. The, the the trainee that just spoke, was it Metakant? I didn't quite catch the name. I'm not good at remembering names.
Mita Kanti.
Mita. Mita. I'm not saying this to cause any kind of disillusionment or anything. You know, what anyone thinks is their own personal affair, you might say. But Buddha does instruct that as a monastic, you wear the robe. One of the reasons is to ward off gadflies. Gadflies are biting flies and mosquitoes. So although it sounds kind of good on paper, oh, this mosquito is having a meal, or oh, I hope the mosquito bites me and gets some dinner. uh, that's not a bit of advice that Buddha would give. Um, and you know, and they didn't even know at that time that mosquitoes carried viruses. I, for one, have almost died on 2 occasions from malaria. And you get malaria from mosquito bites when I was in tropical countries, once in India and once in Mexico. So I would advise you, you know, to be a little careful. I mean, also in this area, there's ticks, and ticks give Lyme disease, and you know, there's kind of a limit to some of these things, you know, and that's why it's very important to study the suttas, because if you read the suttas and you read what Buddha said about one of the reasons for, you know, to wear the robe as a monastic is to ward off gadflies and mosquitoes. So, you know, I would, you know, as nice and noble and kind of uplifting and attractive that sounded on paper, you know, that statement of feeding the mosquitoes, it's not really something that the Buddha would advise. At least that's my opinion. And I'm only saying this because I'm wishing the person well, and I don't want anything, you know, horrible to happen to them or anyone else, you know, due to some kind of practice like that. Anyways, that's all I want to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks to Richard for that sound advice.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this came up before, and at the practical level, in particular for the insects that we know to be dangerous, we know how to protect ourselves from getting Lyme disease from ticks by being observant and taking care. And we also know that despite all of our attention, there's a certain amount of bites and rashes and little things that happen. And so we try to have a balanced attitude towards the unavoidable things. It's the same thing in meditation, isn't it? That we don't go looking for trouble in meditation, but sometimes trouble can come to us in meditation, particularly if a person is under some kind of emotional duress, if they have grief or upset or something like that going on in their life, then during their meditation they're not seeking. They're definitely not seeking anger or aversion, but then it could happen that while sitting on a cushion, like some terribly unpleasant thought comes up with a terribly painful feeling, and you didn't seek it, you didn't look for it, but if it comes up, then you just have to like take care of it right on the spot, and if you know how to abandon those unskillful thoughts, then you should abandon them quickly. But if you don't know how to abandon them, if you haven't yet learned how to abandon unskillful thoughts, then you have to bear them until you learn how to abandon them, and and be motivated to seek out and learn. And even at the more subtle level, a person who's no longer like subjected to afflictive emotions, they still could be subjected to subtle conceit and subtle kinds of distorted perceptions. And those distortions, those unskillful qualities, we don't try to nurture things that are dangerous, but we discover within ourselves that we're still carrying some tendencies, some habits of the mind that are dangerous. And when we discover them, as soon as we discover them, especially if we trust the Buddha, as soon as we discover them, we try to take care of it right away, as quickly as we can, to abandon those. And if we don't know how to abandon them, then we have to find out how to abandon them. So that's sort of my extended riff on, there's the danger of ticks and mosquitoes and ditches and nightfall and social misunderstandings and so many dangers in life. And we don't seek them on purpose. Okay, so maybe it's enough for now. Okay. So let's close by giving respect to the Triple Gem. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teachings so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Thank you, everybody, for your patient listening tonight.
Thank you, Ayya.